I'm Robin Bennett. I'm one of the co-founders of the Dog Gurus. Susan Briggs is on the other screen there. She's the other co-founder of the Dog Gurus. And the Dog Gurus is a pet care business consulting and staff training program. So we help pet care businesses launch, grow, and profit. We help them with business consulting services to help them grow their businesses. And then also we help with training your staff. So if you have any questions about that kind of stuff, definitely let us know or check out our website. And at the end of the Facebook Live, we'll also give you a link to our Facebook group if you're not on that. It's another great way to learn from others who are in the industry and chat about things. So welcome, everybody. We're going to talk about levels training today. And levels is a format for group training classes. I will kick it off because I had actually gotten some emails this morning and yesterday about what is levels. And so I'm going to just start by explaining what levels is, and then I'll throw it over to Susan for any comments or questions or ideas or whatever. But levels training. So most group training classes, when you're teaching dog training, because this is all about teaching dog training classes, if you are a dog trainer or you're offering dog training classes at your facility, typically for group classes, you either are doing workshops or maybe you're doing like a 4 to 6 week class. Like when I had my dog training, I did beginner classes 4 to 6 weeks, and then I had an intermediate class, and then I had an advanced class, and then I had a CGC class where people could come and prepare and take the CGC test. And each of those classes was 4 to 6 weeks. The challenge with that is that in every class, you find that there's 1 or 2 dogs that excel. They're already ahead of your syllabus. They're already stars in the class, and they get a little bit bored because they really need to move a little faster than maybe what your normal current class is scheduled to move at. It's that pace they're scheduled to move at. And then you always also have dogs that need a little more time. So you have, especially shy or fearful dogs, they take a little bit more time. And so sometimes because your class has a specific syllabus, you're XYZ on week 1 and XYZ on week 2, just teaching specific things in order to get through everything in that 4 to 6 week class. There's always a few dogs that could a little bit left behind because they're not quite ready. And then you're teaching the new thing anyway. Levels evens all that out. It's a more flexible way to offer those group training classes to your clients. It offers an alternative to just doing a set thing every single week as you move through your syllabus. And it's an alternative for pet parents to allow them to do the training at their own pace. So the best way to think about it is it's really a skills-based program. So the owner is still going to sign up for a certain number of weeks. Maybe it's a certain number of months, depending on how you set up your program. And then they're going to have the opportunity to start in level 1. I'll just use that as an example. All of my clients had to start in level 1. But if they get to level 1 and they're already can accomplish the skills for level 1, they can jump up into level 2 the next week. If they need 3 weeks to accomplish the skills at level 1, they're in level 1 for 3 weeks. So it doesn't matter. They move through the levels at their own pace, depending on the program they signed up for, the number of weeks they signed up for, and they can base it based on their dog's skills. So if they need more time, they have more time in level 1. If they need to move up to level 2 really fast, they can do that as well. So hopefully that makes sense in terms of explaining it. So I don't know, Susan, if you have anything else you want to add to that.
I know you talked about when typically you had a group class that you would have a puppy, basic, and intermediate. So does that eliminate any of those sections and it's only skills based, or would you still maybe have puppy or advanced skills people can work through?
The way that I set up my levels, I would still have a puppy class. So for me, puppies under that were in that puppy class or socialization kind of period, I would still have a class for those dogs that are under, I would say, 4 or 5 months. But all of my other training clients, I would put into levels. So once they were old enough and they were out of that puppy stage, I even had clients that would do the puppy class because that was a totally different focus. My puppy classes were all about socialization and handling and desensitization to like sounds and sights and smells and that kind of thing. But then my levels classes were focused on basic obedience. So primarily household manners. So you could have somebody in a puppy class and also in levels, but once they get old enough, then I would just have them in levels. So you might have a class that has the brand new rescue dog that's 1.5 years or 2 years with a 5-month-old puppy, but all of level 1, for instance, as an example, they were working on the name game and sit at side and a little bit of leash handling. So just being able to be comfortable on a leash. So everybody's working on those skills, regardless of the age or status of the dog. If you had dogs that came in and they already knew how to sit, they already knew their name, then they might move up. And again, some of the puppies moved up really fast. So that's sometimes the puppies really learn quickly. But like I said, most of the time, the ones that needed more time in the lower levels were shyer dogs or more nervous dogs.
So does your curriculum pretty much just transfer over that your basic goes into level 1, your intermediate goes to level 2, advanced to level 3, or what do you recommend on your
Yeah, so
curriculum and the
that's a great
levels?
question. I have seen people do it that way. I've seen people like do an evaluation and place dogs in whatever they think level they think it's appropriate for the dog to be in. And I did levels for basic obedience, but I have also seen levels done for agility. So
Okay.
you can do it for anything. It doesn't have to be just basic obedience training. My recommendation is, and you obviously could do this however you want. My recommendation for my program, I wanted everybody to start in level 1 regardless of training. Because you get those clients who are like, "Oh, my dog knows how to do everything. Let's put him in level 4." And then they get to level 4 and you find out they're not quite as prepared as you thought they were based on the conversation with them over the phone. So for my clients, I said, regardless of what training you've had in the past, everybody's going to start in level 1, but you might move up really fast. And the other reason I wanted to do that personally is because for my training classes, we did have a huge focus on the name game, which is the name game is you say your dog's name and they'll turn and look at you right away. It's the foundation behavior for teaching a really strong recall later. But because I had a really strong emphasis on the name game, a lot of clients came into my training and the dog could sit and the dog could down and the dog could walk nicely on their leash, but they had no name game. And so I wanted them at level 1 at least long enough to learn that, which usually if they're practicing, they can learn that in a week. So it wasn't really an issue. But I would just always tell people, oh, everyone starts in level 1, but you're going to move up a lot faster if you've already had prior training. So that was how I did it. Otherwise, I think for something like agility, it might be a little bit more obvious if you have a dog that, because I've seen a lot of agility instructors that focus on levels and obviously the levels are more geared towards the obstacles, the agility obstacles, with the higher levels being some of the more challenging obstacles like the teeter or the weave poles. And then I think it's a little bit easier for an owner to say, yes, my dog knows how to do a weave, or no, they don't, or they've never been on the teeter, so they need to be in a certain level because of that. I think it's a little bit easier, but I just wanted to see the dogs to begin with and make that decision for myself, or have my trainers make that decision rather than the owner trusting what the owner would say about where they were. Let
Do
me
you
go to
mind?
the question. So Tasha initially said, I wonder, how do you get training and certification home to start to become a dog trainer or for a dog groomer? So certification is a tricky thing in the dog world. There's places that certify you based on your education. And so you can go to some training programs and get a certification from that training program. For instance, you can take Catch Academy and you can become a dog trainer through them and you'll get a certification from Catch Academy saying you finished their program. So that's one kind of training. And there's a lot of training programs, both online and in person, that you could attend. The other way you can get certification is through independent third-party certification. That's what I have. I have a CCPDT, which is the Certification Council for Professional Dog Trainers. I'm certified through them. A third-party independent certification means they don't train you. All they do is test you. So they test you to make sure you have the education and experience and can pass the exam to show that you have the knowledge required for a dog trainer. So there's that certification. In order to get a independent certification like that, you actually have to have 300 hours of training under your belt. So a lot of people go, I don't want to do anything until I'm certified. But the reality is you actually need to start training before you can even get that kind of certification. So I would recommend looking at the Association of Professional Dog Trainers. They have a free webinar about how to become a dog trainer. So you can start there. And then I would look at some of the schools that offer that kind of education as well. So hopefully that helps. And then grooming training is similar, very similar to what I just explained for training. For grooming, we actually recommend Paragon School of Pet Grooming to learn how to become a groomer. Let me see. Okay. And then Diane said, how do we track attendance? We offer classes currently and have 85% completion rate. with a 54% move up rate. That takes another class. I can't wrap my head around how to keep track of attendance. So I will say that is one of the challenges to levels, but what you hit on to begin with is exactly why I changed to levels. So I explained in the beginning, I had 4 different levels, 4 different classes initially before I started doing levels. I had that beginner class, intermediate, advanced, and CGC. So I had these 4 different classes. I had a really good successful completion rate, just like you did. But the challenge is you get a person who finishes the beginner class, 6-week program on Mondays, let's just say, and now you're like, oh, our next class is going to be Tuesdays for the 6 weeks. It's just really hard with people's lives right now and their schedules. And we had a lot of families with children. So just trying to figure out a 6-week block of time where Tuesdays worked for them. They might skip that next session because they're like, oh, Tuesdays aren't going to work for me. So 6 weeks go by and now you're like, hey, join the next class now. It's now on Wednesdays, and maybe they can do it, maybe they can't. But with every level that we moved up to, the re-enrollment rate got lower. So we had a lot of people that would sign up from class 1 to class 2, but then getting them into that advanced class and into that CGC class, every time that percentage dropped. And that was one of the reasons I switched to a levels format, because I had more consistency of people getting through all the training, and I also generated more revenue. But in terms of tracking the attendance, you can actually track this all on an Excel spreadsheet. Did use a program called Daylight, which is basically a CRM for the Mac, because I use Mac computers, where I just tagged them as to what level they were in. So I could at any time, this was basically an Excel spreadsheet. I could at any time download everybody that was tagged with level 1 and see, okay, here's all my level 1s. Here's instructors teaching some of the classes. So when they moved up, the instructors would basically keep track of that in the class. Everybody had an individual 3x5 card. I think it was 5x8 actually. But anyway, an index card with their name on it. When they went through the training, the instructor would write that they had attended and any really tiny notes about what they might need help on. And then if they moved up, the instructor would write that on the card too. On October 26th, this person moved up to level 2. And then that instructor's responsibility was to email me. I was the administrator of the whole program at the time, and say, these dogs moved up to level 2, these dogs moved up to level 3. And then I would just track them on my Excel spreadsheet. So I always knew. And every time they moved up, they got an automatic email that said, welcome to the next level. Your dog has accomplished these things, and this is what we're going to be working on the next level, kind of thing. But I would track it all on an Excel spreadsheet if you didn't want to get really fancy. And the biggest thing you have to track is, depending on how you set your program up, are they in it for, a certain number of weeks or a certain number of months? Or if you do it by a punch pass system, how often have they come? So that kind of thing you would have to track. So hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, can you go a little more into detail on how you do charge that's different than classes?
Yeah, so what I would recommend is I would charge, and you have to figure out how this is all going to work in terms of your expenses as well. But I charged a 2-month fee. So there was a one set fee if you were in the program for 2 months. And then I had a 4-month and a 6-month program as well. So you could sign up for 2 months, 4 months, and 6 months. The way I explain that to people is I typically would say, if you just want to learn basic obedience, you want your dog to learn the beginning commands, just do 2 months. If you want your dog to be a little bit stronger around distractions, then I would sign up for 4 months. If you really want your dog to start working on some off-leash skills as well as distractions, I would sign up for 6 months. So that was an easy way for me to explain to my clients what they were going to get out of 2 months, 4 months, or 6 months. And that was assuming they were coming to class at least once a week, which is what most of my clients did. The great thing, when I set mine up, because I did have multiple instructors, we set up a schedule where we had every level offered twice a week. And I told people they could come as often as they wanted during the time they were enrolled. So if they wanted to, and they could come to any level for what their dog was in, or lower levels, which meant if you were in level 1, you could only come to level 1 classes. But and they were offered twice a week. If you were in level 2, you could come to level 1 or 2 classes. which were now you have 4 opportunities because you could come to either of those sets of classes. If you were in level 3, you could come to 1, 2, or 3. And if you were level 4, you could come to any class you wanted. Not everybody sets it up that way. And if you're a single instructor, like if you're the only one teaching, I probably would not set it up that way because you want to have a little bit more control and not as many dogs in the classes. But you'll soon find that even though you're telling people come as often as you want, they pretty much come once a week. We had the 1 or 2 clients who loved training that would come more often, but on average, most clients came once a week. And the great thing is if they missed a week, like they were going to go out of town and they'd say, oh, I'm going to miss class. You just say, oh, you're not going to miss class. Just come the following week and come twice. And so a lot of people did not do that. They knew that was the opportunity. So it's just a lot easier to sell for the whole vacation experience where you're not trying to make up classes or trying to fill them in on something they missed or whatever. So that made it a lot easier. But the schedule, and then we had 2 instructors for each class. So on average, we would have on my ratio, I will always want about 1 instructor to every 6 to 7 dogs, especially in the lower levels. In the higher levels, you can actually have more dogs because their skills are a lot better. But we just did trial and error to figure out, like, on average, how many dogs can we have enrolled before things get too crazy and we have too many dogs. When I initially started levels, I started out with an orientation without dogs. If I did that again today, I would do an orientation online. So they would watch an orientation, and basically my orientation was a little bit about what to expect when they came to class. We taught the name game, and I used clicker training. So I taught the clicker, how to introduce the clicker to their dog, how to teach the name game. And that was all pretty much done at the orientation without the dogs there. So we just talked through all that. I would do that online now. But then once they came to class, obviously most dogs had already started practicing the name game and a little bit of other behaviors just on their own from what they learned at the orientation. And then after that, I was initially doing an orientation like every 2 weeks. And what I found was that was too frequent. I had to spread those out a little bit more. So I ended up doing my orientations about every 3 to 4 weeks, depending on the time of year. And that gave me just the right amount of flow to have people starting classes and move through the levels in a way that wasn't overwhelming my instructors. So hopefully that makes sense.
Well, I think it's a lot of information, but it's great stuff. And I know that you feel really strongly that Levels is great for the dogs and the business.
Yeah, I think for the dogs, I just think it does. I did it initially because I wanted more students doing more with their dogs. So I loved that I had a lot of clients in my beginner classes and I could fill those beginner classes. And I said this, I guess it was at APDT. I was talking to a group and I was saying, and when you're a dog training instructor, you're constantly on the lookout for new clients. It's like, and obviously all businesses are, but when you have new clients come in and then only 50% of them move on to the second class you're offering, and then of those 50%, like half of them that now you're at 25% go to the third class, like you're constantly having to generate new clients all the time. And that is exhausting. And if you look at any kind of marketing material, the best way to sell, the easiest, most cost-effective way to sell is to sell stuff to the clients you already have. So if we bring them in, let's keep them as long as possible. That was what I was going for. I wanted to keep people training longer. Obviously, just as a trainer who wants to help families, I wanted them to train longer because it meant the likelihood of that dog staying in the family increases. And ultimately, I wanted more dogs taking my CGC test because I did offer the CGC test, but out of all the clients I ever got, the ones that could make it through 4 sets of classes was like 4%. And so I had a very small amount of people that were like, yay, we're ready for the CGC. And so Levels helped to change all of that because everyone had a lot more flexibility. The dogs were able to learn at their own pace. And I will go back to those shyer dogs because the ones that really needed the extra time, if they spent longer in level 1 and level 2, they would fly through the rest of the levels really quickly. It's just they needed more time to get used to the environment, to get used to the fact that they're training, to get used to the distractions. And so some of those shy and fearful dogs that I saw never really succeed in a regular group class because by the end of 6 weeks, they're still like, well, things are really crazy here. and all I can do is sit. Those dogs, after a few weeks, they got really good. So they spent longer in the lower levels, but then they would fly through the higher levels, which I thought was really cool too.
And I think that as a dog owner, when you have a dog that progresses slowly, then sometimes you can feel bad and like you're a failure. And then the levels format, no one really knows. So
Exactly.
you don't
Yeah,
feel like you're dropping out because you get frustrated.
and that's what would happen in my levels classes. Usually after like week 4, those clients would see what some of the other dogs were doing and they'd be like, we're never going to get there. And they just wouldn't come back.
Yeah.
And it wasn't any fault of the owner. It was just the dog needed more time. So in levels, there's literally sometimes in level 1 where we would just go over to the owner and we'd build a little condo for them out of PVC with some drapes on it. So basically just to give less visual stimulation to that dog. And we just tell the owner, look, your only goal for tonight is just to play with your dog. Here's some toys, here's some treats, just have fun. Because we wanted the dog to just get relaxed in the environment. And usually those owners were thrilled because they were like, oh my God, he's wagging his tail now. And then you'd come back the next week and then you'd start working on the obedience. Because really the dogs can't even function to learn if they're not feeling safe and comfortable in the environment in the first place. So just giving them a little bit more time to acclimate, then they could train really well. And we had really good success with those dogs. And then also those clients who are the overachiever clients that are working all the time with their dog, that week 1 you're like the dog already knows 6 commands and haven't even covered half of them. Now you're like, what do I do with this dog? Because they're bored to death. And you're trying to give them creative options because their dog already knows how to do things, and you're trying to increase the distractions, but it's hard to increase the distractions when none of the other dogs are ready for those distractions. So that's what's great too, is those clients that are really have a dog they've either worked with before or they just have a lot of time and love working with their dog. So they learn everything within the in between classes. You can move them up. And then you get those level 4 dogs where you can have my level 3 and 4 for us was all games. And my instructors came up with the most creative games. And it was just all about having fun and using all of the obedience skills and not just doing let's all heel in a circle or whatever, because that's boring to everybody, but using all of the games to really play and learn and reinforce the behaviors. And then with the more advanced dogs, we'd start doing off leash stuff with them as well in classes. So that worked out really well because then people are having fun with the dogs.
Yeah.
So I think my one recommendation I would say, and you want to make level 1 easy enough to move up. So you want to really get the owner to have success. So for me, level 1 was literally name game, sit at side. Most dogs can sit looking at their owner. I wanted the dog to actually sit at the side. So we taught that. So the dog was sitting at the side of the owner, looking the same direction as the owner, the same way you would do if you're going to start healing. And those were really the 2 biggest things we worked on. But generally speaking, those are pretty easy to accomplish. So you move up pretty quick. That success, we all know positive reinforcement for owners as well. That success was like, yay, I moved up. I'm in the next level. It really helps the owner to continue to want to engage and have fun and play with the dogs as well and keep coming to class. So I would just look at that. But you can do this for any type of class. You could do it for workshops. You could do it for agility. Like I said, if you teach rally obedience, you could do it based on signs in the rally classes or based on the length of a course or something like that. You can be really creative in how you set this up to switch the way you're currently teaching your programs to hopefully keep more clients in the programs. The other thing I get a lot of questions on, can you do this if you're a solopreneur and you're the only trainer? And yes, I have seen it done that way. Typically, you're either restricting the number of clients you're taking at any time so that you know how many clients are coming to class at any given time, or more frequently, I see people sell basically like punch cards. So instead of doing 2 months, 4 months, 6 months, you might have a certain number of classes that they can attend. And every time they come, you just punch their card to say, okay, you've come 9 out of your 10 times or whatever. So you can do it that way too. And I see we did not require reservations, but with individual trainers, I have seen that too, where you give them the option to attend the classes. based on when you're scheduling them, but they do have to reserve their spot so that, again, how many dogs are coming at any given time, especially if you don't have an assistant, because you don't want to have 20 dogs in a level 1 class by yourself. At least I wouldn't recommend that. I think that's it. I'm looking at seeing if there's any other questions, and I don't see any in there. What I am going to put a link in the comments that one of the reasons that we brought this up and I got a bunch of emails is because we do have a promotion right now going for. I developed a class a while ago on how to develop a levels based model of group training. So we do have an online course that takes you through how to create this type of program for your business if you're looking at converting. When I converted my program, it was this time of year many years ago, but it was at the holiday, just before the holidays. And basically I closed during the holidays anyway. I usually had a fun class, a holiday class, and then I stopped all my classes until January. So that was for me when I converted my whole group training program. So basically we wanted to give you that as an idea to take the holiday period to take that online course, map out what it would look like, and then you roll that levels program out at the beginning of the new year and just start fresh with a new type of program. So take a look at that link if you're interested. Again, it's all online. So I think it's $247. I can't remember. Don't hold me on that, but I think that's how much it is. Any last comments you wanted to make, Susan? Otherwise, I'll put our Facebook group in there.
No, I think it sounds like a great format that's a win for the business, the clients, and the dogs. It sounds like it takes away a lot of the frustrations for everybody concerned. So I think be bold, do a little more research, and try it. They wouldn't have to convert all the programs at once. They could start with obedience.
Exactly. Yeah, and if you have several different, if you're doing agility and you're doing obedience, and I wouldn't change everything all at once. I would pick one and kind of experiment. And it does take, we rolled our program out and then we did some tweaks to it. We changed a little bit of the criteria to make sure that people could move through easily. And like I said, we changed how often we did those orientations because I was getting too many clients in classes to begin with. So a little bit of tweaking as you go through it, but you'll soon find that it's a great way to get people started and to keep them training longer and to just influence more lives of families and dogs as well.